Hello and welcome back to the Arcane Forge. Welcome back to the Drawtober challenge. My name's Josh, and for those of you who don't know, the Drawtober challenge is an attempt by me to illustrate every single day throughout the month of October, using analog pens and papers and ink, stuff like that, inspired by the randomly generated prompt words on screen right now. Today's prompt word is the word fruit. And this one was one of my favourites of the whole month so far, so I won't keep you any longer. Let's get started with today's video and talk about today's illustration, day 22. So for this one, the premise is, I suppose, unusual but simple. Could happen to any adventuring party. I thought I would draw a mimic, but not the kind of, traditional seen in most classic dungeons where you have the treasure chest mimic. I thought I would draw, as the title here is, fruit, a fruit stall mimic, fruit vendor mimic. So it's a whole stall salesperson and every item of fruit is a mimic. And I kind of thought I would have an adventurer sort of scoping out, maybe failing a perception or an insight check to determine the nature of this fruit. And I realised I haven't drawn a dragonborn for this entire month so far, so I thought I would go ahead and draw a dragonborn character here with a nice fur-lined collar, clutching onto what they believe is an apple, but in reality is obviously a young mimic. I kind of imagine that this might be, I talked a little bit about this in my Mimic Monster Monday, and the kind of nature of page mimics and how these might be larval or sort of baby mimics and how they spread across the world. But I thought this could be just as simple an idea of how a mimic might travel to distant dungeons or find interesting prey. So I kind of pictured that the entire stall and its vendor is like one mimic. See their kind of hand and the top of the stall starting to kind of melt and warp as they try and maintain this illusion. There are lots of eyes in all these kind of not so reassuring, but in hopefully reassuring little signs all over the place to say things like, so normal, 100% mimic free, as if this has happened quite a lot in this town. Real fruit, most ordinary fruit in town, that kind of thing. And I imagine all the individual fruit in this stall, in this fruit vendor mimic, are actually it's young, that it's trying to spread across the world to get people to either purchase it or just take them, where they will grow into fully grown mimics themselves and spread across the land. Thought this would be a fun idea for an adventuring party to kind of encounter. I thought in case any of them are a little bit too perceptive and don't buy themselves a mimic or something like that. You can see down at the bottom there by the Dragonborn's knee that the bottom of this stall is lifting up. It's actually the mouth of this mimic with a few little eyes looking up, ready to strike in case the adventurer draws a sword or casts a spell or begins combat, basically. When the jig is up, this whole stall can just open up and consume whoever's asking too many questions. But this was a really fun idea, and I am looking forward to putting this in my campaign world. There are two things that I really want to do with it. I don't know if it was Griffin's Saddlebag or if it was someone else on Instagram that I follow, but there was definitely something that I saw that had a mimic potion available, and that idea really interested me as something that you could either throw this as kind of like a Molotov cocktail on someone to transform them into a mundane object temporarily. If they gain the properties of a mimic, you involuntarily turn them into a random inanimate object, kind of like a polymorph spell, but they just turn into like a chair or something like that. As a DM, you can have a lot of fun with this by, sort of having completely out of place items just appear randomly and someone throws a potion at someone. I thought also you could drink this potion yourself to temporarily turn into an inanimate object in order to sort of pass a stealth check, go completely unnoticed until the potion's effects wear off or something along those lines. So a mimic that sells mimic-like items would be really cool, but also a mimic that wants to sell its young, and you could have like a little mimic that might turn into a weapon or might be useful to party members. If you wanted to make a somewhat chaotic but benevolent mimic vendor, you could do that. But I feel like this particular mimic vendor is just out to spread their young throughout the world and maybe eat any people who are slightly too inquisitive. So yeah, my adventuring party are looking out for Hugh Man's Fruit, the fruit vendor who is definitely not a real fruit vendor. I didn't have too much time for today's illustration, so I didn't get time to sort of shade this one. There's so many little details and little lines, so many sort of displays of movement that I think if I had drawn all of this with my brush pens, which I really love, and then gone over it with some shading, there might have been too much bleeding and it might have been a little bit too hard to kind of tell what was going on. Maybe some of the original detail might have been lost. So I was pleased actually to leave this one at the line work stage. I decided to go over a few lines a couple of times just to make sure that things stood out a little bit better, just so, you know, I could leave with the peace of mind that this didn't necessarily need shading. So I was happy with today's events. I thought this was quite fun, quite light-hearted, a nice, interesting idea to put your campaign as an alternative means of introducing Mimic to your group, and it was a nice chance for me to be able to draw a dragon this month as well. I hope you had similarly as much fun with the prompt word fruit. Hopefully we can all enjoy day 23's prompt of the word pull and see what we can all come up with tomorrow. So yeah, I think I will leave you there, get on with the rest of my day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Bye!